In this video, you will be performing the 8 fundamental exercises in Pilates mat training. We will be moving the spine in all 4 directions. That's flexion, extension, lateral flexion, and rotation in all 3 planes of motion. Let's get started with our first exercise called pelvic curl, also known as bridging. So go ahead and lie down all the way on your mat and make sure you have that nice neutral space. Your pelvis needs to be neutral, so the upper hip bones and your pubic bone need to be on the same plane. Also your chin and forehead as well. So you want that nice neutral space in this spine. We're going to start nice and long here, arms at our side, and I'm going to have you have your legs the width of the hip and bring your heels in just slightly more toward the hip so your heels are directly underneath the knees. You're going to take a big breath in to prepare. As you exhale, you're going to tilt the tailbone towards your nose. You're going to feel your low back connect to the mat, belly goes down and deep, and you're going to slowly peel up the spine, 1 vertebrae at a time. When you reach the top here, it needs to be neutral. The rib, the hip, the thigh are all in one line here. Take a big breath in without popping the ribs or changing the spine, and then exhale, slowly go down, replacing your spine individually, each vertebrae individually, 1 at a time. Inhale at the bottom here, find your neutral space. Exhale, tuck the pelvis, belly down and deep, and peel up. Pressing evenly into both feet. Big breath in, and then exhale, slowly melt the spine, returning each vertebrae individually. Concentrate on spinal articulation. This is the motion of the spine that we're working on here in this bridge position. And exhale. You'll also notice that your hamstrings, your gluteals are involved. Big breath in, watch your chin position. And we're going to do this about 6 more for a total of 10 reps. Make sure the shoulders are down again, away from the ears. You feel your lats engaging there, scapula is away. Imagine your scapula is just reaching toward the pelvis, as if you had imaginary hip pockets. Elongate the bottom here. Exhale, tuck and peel. Make sure you don't overarch here at the top. If you feel this in your low back, reposition. Tuck the tail slightly more. 1 more time. Come up a little higher if you can. Big breath in, rib cage closes, and exhale, slowly melt it on down, 1 vertebrae. Good. All right, tuck the knees into the chest for a little stretch. Good. Let's lower 1 leg and then the other. Hands go behind the head. And I want the elbows to be slightly lifted off the mat there. You're going to cradle your head in your hands. You're going to tuck the chin, eyes toward the thighs, and slowly peel up into our next exercise called a chest lift or curl up. Rib cage knits toward each other and drive the rib toward the hip. Low back slightly imprints into the mat. Try not to jam it. You don't want to make that the large emphasis. You don't want to jam and tuck using the gluteals. So you're lifting, there's a small imprint. Control. You want to work the same pace up and the same pace down. We're focusing on spinal flexion within the sagittal plane. Notice I'm not pulling on my head. Think of floating the head, neck, and shoulders up. We're going to do about 10 reps. So I believe we've got about 4 more. Return to neutral each time. Tuck and peel. Belly to the back. Full breath out before you return. Last one. Good. Return to your neutral space. Arms down at your side. All right. You're going to keep your legs exactly where they are. They should be directly underneath the hip, and your pelvis is stable here. So you maintain that neutral space. You're going to lift up one leg into tabletop. Knee is directly in line with the hip, and your shin is parallel. Your foot is directly in line with the knee. You're going to lower it down carefully and lift up nice and carefully. Slowly lower, exhale, and inhale. I want you to imagine there's a spring connected from the ball of your foot to the floor. You're going to pull on that spring as you lift up and then compress the spring as you go down, feeling both directions. So we're focusing here on spinal and pelvic stability and hip mobility. Notice nothing else moving but that leg. Last two. And again, we're doing about 10 on each leg. Notice how my knee joint is just nice and stable, so you maintain that shape of the leg. Same thing other side. Inhale, lift up, make sure you have that nice space again. You've got that tabletop, and then lower down, tap the floor. You don't want to let that leg rest on the floor, just tap. You don't have to point the toe, you can flex if you'd like. And you would tap the heel. Neck is nice and long, shoulder blades are pressing away and down toward the hip. Collarbone is open. Use that breath, force the breath out, exhale. Last one. Good. Let's go ahead and roll on our sides. And we're going to go right into some lateral flexion of the spine. So I call these double leg lifts. So you're going to glue your legs together. One hand is going to be right in front of the chest. The opposite arm just reaching in line with the spine, and your ear or your head just resting on your bicep. Make sure your legs are directly underneath the hips. If you need a little more stability, angle your legs to the front corner of your mat. Okay? So nice and long. Inhale to prepare. As you exhale, you're going to lift up the legs, laterally flex at the waist, and then lower. Exhale up. Shoulders stacked, hips stacked, knees, ankles. Think of your legs together, glued together as one, lifting up and lower. Feel that upper waist contract. So your obliques, lateral flexion. Again, we're going to do about 10 on each side. Try not to wobble around. Returning, tapping the floor gently. Last two. 4, don't let it rest at the bottom, and 1. Good. All right, push yourself up, turn yourself around. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So get yourself into position. Everything is stacked, and just make sure that little space at the waist. Okay, this is your neutral. If you let your waistline sag in the middle here, you're actually slightly in a lateral flex spine position. So lift it up. Get yourself back in that nice long, just like a pencil, long or an arrow. Hand right in front of the shoulder, chest area. Everything's glued together. Inhale. As you exhale, lift the legs together, laterally flex at the waist. Lateral flexion. Super glue those legs together. We're actually moving in what we call the frontal plane. Last 3. Elongate at the bottom. Try not to let your legs rest. Try not to use that upper arm too much. You certainly don't want to push with that low arm. Last 1. Good. Okay, so now we're going to go into abduction. So we're going to lift up the upper leg. You're going to have your lower leg, turn your toes down. Your lower leg is going to meet the upper leg. These are inner thigh lifts. Pelvis is very stable here. The upper leg doesn't want to go down, so you want to have the lower leg come up to meet the upper leg. If you have your leg too high, it's going to have to come up too high, and you don't want to do that. So just in line with the hip, maybe slightly higher. Feel that inner thigh squeeze. Strong through the core. Abduction of the leg. Pelvis and spine is stable. Good. Let's roll it up. Same thing other side. Okay, stack everything. Take your hands right there in front of the chest. Make sure you're nice and aligned here, like a long pencil arrow. Inhale. Let's make sure that waist is slightly lifted. As you exhale, lift up both legs, lower and lift just the bottom. And isolate that inner thigh while we're working stability of the spine and pelvis. Still working that waistline. I know you feel it. Use that breath. Last 2. And 1. Lower your legs. Go back onto your backs. All right. Our legs are directly underneath the hips to start. I'm going to have you open up your arms about 45-degree angle. Reposition the shoulders. You can bring them up, back, down, and around. And that's going to put your scapula in a neutral position. You're going to lift up one leg into your tabletop and then the other and glue them together. You have a subtle, it's very subtle, imprint of the spine into the mat. If there's a little bit of space, that's okay, as long as you're not arching. Okay, so we have a nice neutral position here. Your legs are bound together. You're going to lower your legs to one side while your shoulder stays on the mat. Don't go too far on this first repetition. And then exhale back to center. This is rotation of the spine, working in the transverse plane. Look at your knees. They should stay aligned so one doesn't get longer. A lot of times that upper leg gets a little short, so make sure they stay glued. And we're going to do about 5 on each side, using those obliques to draw the legs back towards center. If you want to make this a little harder, you can drop them a little farther. So we're rotating at the waist, concentrating on those obliques. 1 more on each side. Good. Lower one leg and then the other, hip width apart. Hands go back behind the head, elbows up. Feel your scapula nice and flat on the mat. We're going to do a curl up or chest lift in rotation. Inhale. As you exhale, you're going to tuck the chin, flex the spine, and then rotate. Right rib goes toward left hip. Come back to center and down. And we're going to do 10 on each side. A little quicker. Now if you'd like to continue the rotation through the neck, so watch your cervical spine, eyes looking at that outside elbow, come up, eyes to thighs, rotate at the waist without the lower body moving. Try not to just roll onto the shoulder. So flex the spine, both shoulders up, rotate without allowing it to just rest on the mat. One more. Flexion, rotation. Get ready to go the other side. Inhale, tucking the chin, flexing the spine. See if you can get the blades of the shoulders to come up, shoulder blades. Left rib toward right hip without rotating through the hips. They're very stable. Eyes looking at that outside elbow. Notice the difference if you forgot that. When you peel down, make sure you don't pop the ribs. So you stop in that neutral position each time. Let's do two more. And down, very good. All right, let's roll over to prone. Facing your mat, arms at your side, nice and long. Now you can keep your hands on the floor if you'd like. You can hover, it's a little more challenging. Your legs are about the width of the hips. They may go wider for a little easier variation. All right, let's start in our neutral position. Eyes are looking right at the mat, shoulders down. Inhale. As you exhale, I'm going to have you slowly extend through the neck, eyes looking toward the top of the mat. You're going to extend the thoracic spine, which is that upper back area. Try not to use too much of the lower back. So focus on drawing the belly up to the spine as you lift up in extension. Again, if that's too hard, take your fingertips on the floor. Keeping those shoulders down, wide across the back. Working your extensors. And of course, this spinal movement is extension. Try not to look forward at the wall, really more at the top of your mat. So everything is slight extension without going into hyperextension. Notice what your belly's doing. Exhale two more times. Belly goes up to the spine. Notice where you feel this. Good job. All right, hands at the shoulders. Push yourself up. We're going to cool the back with a little cat-cow position. So let's start neutral, ear, shoulder, hip all in one line. Hands are under the shoulders, knees are under the hips. Inhale, elongate the spine. As you exhale, curve the spine, nose to tailbone, tailbone to nose, belly goes up, and inhale, pass through neutral, exhale into your extension. We're going to make this 2 breath. Inhale, return to neutral, exhale, curve. Inhale, return to neutral, exhale in extension. So flexion, extension of the spine in the sagittal plane. Now we're going to make this next repetition 1 breath. Exhale on flexion. Inhale to extension. Make sure the elbows are soft so they're not hyperextended. Last one. And return to neutral. Send your hips all the way back into child's pose. Arms are long, forehead rests right onto the mat. You can have wide knees if you'd like here. And just melt into your mat with every exhalation. Armpits pressing toward the mat. As you inhale, feel your back widen, rib cage open. You're more comfortable with your hands right at your heels. You're welcome to do that as well. One more full breath. Good. Hands at the shoulders. Push yourself up. And we are all done with the 8 fundamental exercises in Pilates mat. Thank you.